I didn't copy that. So if you have it on the phone, manage that by PC or however you want to manage that data. I may touch upon it during the session. The other piece I sent out was a little note this morning, a couple added thoughts I had and we talked about, but I wanted to dive into it, give an opportunity. But going back to the original agenda, I think Lonnie indicated that he needed to potentially leave a little earlier. And the second item on the agenda was Lonnie talking about Oakdale Street, and meeting with Gary Smith, where that's at. So Lonnie, I'll turn to you and give us an update.
Sure. So I met with Gary last Friday and he brought this plan. He has more plans. He's just waiting to get them from Fred. Fred's not 100% well right now, so definitely some, not pushing on that. But I am going to see Fred myself today, and Fred did mention that he should have that stuff. Hopefully we can get it over sooner than later, and that would be septic design, things along those lines.
Who's Fred?
Fred Lappin from Shea Engineering. But what we have here, this is the plan that was so this plan here, and I'll try to get this electronically so we can get it over to everybody and also
Yes.
to the architect.
Yep.
So here's North Ave here. Oakdale Street comes down this side here. And this is where we entered in on the site visit. Obviously, that stone wall you could see the stone wall. This was the parking area, as well as what was going to be the area of the farmstead area parking. That rock area, I haven't run into Mike Salvador as well in between our last meetings, and just because it's actually wet there. That's what they had done, was they had built it up with all that riprap that was going to stabilize and make the parking lot in the area to start building the building. Right now, the building is about 4,800 square feet. I think we're shy of one. Obviously, we're talking about 9,000 to 10,000 square feet of building. That was 4,800 based upon, it was a 40 by 60 building, 2 levels essentially. Same thing we had in mind. So we'll probably have to increase that size a bit. And we believe that that's the only, and Ann is working on this part of it with the conservation restriction that's on there, that the only piece we need to change is the increase in the size of the building. We have plenty of space to work with. Obviously, we want to try to stay away from disturbing any of these natural stone walls, not natural, but historic stone walls that are there. They go both ways, but I think that there's plenty of room in this area here. We're looking at there's a total of 14 acres that's usable. Again, want to try to keep as we want to keep as much of the farm area still as much as we can, keep that farm and then try to keep that building over here.
Yeah, the only thing interesting as far as the is we're looking at the facility, we're pulling out the van of it, so there'll be a freestanding garage type of.
Which would be fine. I think that we still, now, we're gonna pull that out of the facility. That might reduce the size of the actual facility. Okay, that's fine. Either way, but because we have this whole area, given we have to stay away from the wetlands as much as we need to, but we have this whole area essentially to work with for parking for the building and also for the parking garage, which, could butt up against this section, nice and easy in the corner. Again, I'm the architect will know best, but I'm still working on some topography that they already have there, and also the septic design, which I hope to get both of those sooner.
Super, we get those, okay. We'll have to look at that, because capacity is gonna be different. Capacity of the building. We're looking at potentially down in our center where we're at today, we could have gone up to 300 feet capacity. That doesn't mean they're there, but each one of these rooms have to count for how many bodies can fit in. I think maybe we'd love to see around 150, 200 people max in the building at any given time. Future. But that requires some sort of acreage to be able to disperse the leaching.
Sure, so there's more, and again, we have, I believe in the open space area is usable for well if we need it for that. We can overlap that. We can at least overlay the,
That's our open space.
this is, no, this is, so this right now is the whole piece
Okay,
that we would be acquiring. So we would be able to utilize, to be able to locate the well and locate the septic to keep them away from each other. But we can go into this area, I believe, at least with the overlay of the well. So if the well's in the very back corner here, and the septic ends up being up here or whatever it may be, that those should be all dual.
yes, if with that area over there, I think you're fine, absolutely.
And if we can get the well in here, although we'd have to, you know, the trench might be a bit, but that's, a pipe trench is much better than if we can keep that well maybe inside of the open space, which I don't know the answer directly to that, but if you can. That would allow that, you know, your overlay area for the public water supply to be out of any of the other areas that we want to be.
Not really familiar with this, but do you want, what would the intent behind like farm pit area, open area, and then the, I guess, development to be up in the upper left hand corner?
So I don't think that there was really any rhyme or reason. It was probably the best location for a building was up in this top corner.
Yeah.
Based upon, you know, soil samples and things along that nature. And then, given the natural walls that are already there, that they just looked like they were the cutoff point.
Yeah.
And when it's not that the farmstead area is in this triangle,
Yeah.
it's in this section all the way up.
Yeah.
Meaning however it laid out was the best.
Okay.
So what they were doing is in the area where we were, because again, this is that stone wall I hopped to go check that gate. This area is where the proposed building was going to go.
Right.
And this area was to be utilized for actual farming.
Right.
Which if we can keep that 100% the way it is, get our building septic in here and our well located, you know, in whatever is the best location. It's just it just looks better and better. There needs to be further discussions with Mr. Gannett, with Gary regarding whatever was proposed to be used for building the facility, whatever that may be, is on the unknown. But Gary is going to continue to talk to Mr. Gannett regarding it.
So would the idea be to donate the whole property back or just the area big enough, the whole thing?
And then the farm stand will just, some citizens will just take care of the farm area.
Somebody's already in working on that, for the public garden type. They had a stand at the rock block bed.
Talking about Annie Tarnas, who's,
So, yeah.
yeah, she's taking care of that plot of, I saw her on Sunday because I always love to stop by and see what she's selling to try to encourage her, but, yeah, she's developing that. I think Gary Smith has given her the okay. She doesn't own it, but
Sure.
she wants to make, like community gardens and
Yep.
things like that. In fact, she told me on Sunday that, you know, that the senior center, should they end up there, because she had heard about them coming, she thought it was her lot.
Yep.
And I assured her it wasn't, that, you know, she would be willing to give the senior center a plot, you know, near the line, and we could use it to grow vegetables or whatever, so. Yeah,
It might be helpful because I don't see anything that shows the well there already. But may be able to supply some water for that area as well. With that well, or maybe we can, it'd be where it's not gonna be a drinking well. Maybe there's even a possibility to drill an irrigation well.
So that's moving along, so that's, and that is, okay. But I still view that as with a trust that needs to be modified. And there's a, you know, a rest of the lead time schedule. But it looks like, and Ann's also, sounds like she's working to undo the piece that we have to do with the state.
It's nothing to, I don't think there's an undo, it's just an adjustment. An adjustment on this. So right now, this piece is not conservation restrained. This piece is.
Okay,
Okay. There's open spaces. So to build a building here is not a problem. It's that there's a restriction on the size of the building
So this,
within this. So, and only because they just put the size of the building that they were thinking of doing, right?
Yeah.
So we just need to adjust that size and it being for the senior center and, municipal use. There seems to be, the consensus is that this shouldn't be an issue, because everybody seems to be on board. So, I do have a meeting that, I heard from Senator Fatman this last week. He was supposed to meet this week. Not that he is going to be the one to do this, but I'll leave when I buy. And one of the items I was going to talk to him about was, is there possible funding for senior center? But I'm optimistic I'm going to get a good answer, a more answer than we'd like to hear, but we'll at least ask.
his last answer, there was none, but he
Yeah,
made,
sometimes if you keep asking.
Yeah,
yeah, and he's also, we also said think about the energy system that goes in the senior center. Think about an elevator for access to senior. They could pay for part of this rather than pay for the whole building. We'll take small chunks of it.
Has anybody heard any rumors about the town purchasing farm up on North Avenue?
And it's
No.
farm.
Yeah, but
it's
it's
not
not,
purchasing, it's, it would be,
Thank you, Lonnie.
It's some,
paid by that
That
family, but then
family?
the town would have a conservation restriction that would allow access for open space.
Well, the reason why I raise it is because I remember Ian saying last time that if you're taking away the conservation restriction on this, you could put it on another one.
Ah, yes,
That's what I,
right, yes,
that's my train
right.
of
He
thought.
did say something about that, but I think that anyhow, yeah, we'll have to follow up with
I
her about.
don't think we were talking about conservation restriction here. We're talking about removing this one. We were talking, because what we were talking about was swapping the conservation restriction on the Route 16 property that comes up the side of Route 16, maybe putting that to the back of the property, giving a buffer to the residents, looping that back around instead of on the Route 16 side. That's really what the swap was. That was within the property.
Because I thought I heard her say that, when it was transferred to the Gannett's transferred it to the town transferred it back. The Gannett's transferred it to Smith, and it was then that they had put up some type of conservation there. I'm pretty sure I heard her say that.
No, there is the conservation, but what the conservation restriction swap was what I think we were talking
Route
about
16.
for the Route 16 process, because we've talked about that. Yeah.
I agree. I heard the same thing, so we can maybe follow up.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
have it clear in my mind, because I was thinking, when I heard the rumor that the town might take that over, I was thinking, wow,
Ah, right,
that's a way of swapping.
Yeah,
right.
there's still a lot of this.
It's
we're not buying that land.
okay,
Yeah, there's a lot
it's
of,
just rumors you hear.
right, there's still a lot more discussion needs to happen there, because that's more or less subsidizing a business by giving them money from the town, but not getting any land back for it. All we're buying is rights. We're buying the development rights, so nobody would ever build there.
I see.
It's really,
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
So Lonnie, there
Yes.
was some talk of possible donations, like I know the land, like that's a big donation, but there was some possibility of funding that.
sure, that's what I'm sorry, I just mentioned that Gary was still talking to the Gannett's about, yes. Because there was, there was never a known number. There was just a, hey, don't worry about it if something happens type of deal. So I don't know if Gary's going to talk to them.
Thank you.
I don't know. We didn't know he didn't even know.
My last question on that map, Lonnie, there's more than enough land in that upper left-hand corner.
Right, so even worst case, right?
Yeah.
And again, we want to not have to really mess with anything here.
Right.
In my opinion, and Mike, I mean, your thoughts, you deal with these more than I do every day, but this tops, where you came on site visit, right? Well, were you? No. So when you come in on Hopedale Street, the entrance is right there. And then where Mike Salvador put in all that riprap to make it so that the water will not flow out the back and down the well. That section up here, this is what we're talking about, is they have, I don't have any of the site layout yet, but they do have proposed locations for all of the stuff, already waiting for those plans. But in my opinion, to double the size of that building would not, you could fit that in this space. with setbacks. There's the only setback you have is on this side. Again, we don't want to disrupt the stone wall, but I suppose if we had to a little bit, even if it was the lower side, we could figure it out, but again, we'd rather not, for sure.
Of course, we're gonna try to maintain that.
And I think you can fit.
I think the building,
That's somewhat my favorite.
once we get the plans a little better, and we get the architect looking at it. He can also factor in the parking issue and turnabouts he wants to do for drop off. So I think that's good.
Well, there's still options on the side of the building. You know, it doesn't have to be one floor.
Agreed. Well, I think that place is still a two-story operation.
Sure. So instead of going this way, you go up a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's, well, we're planning an elevator regardless. There you go.
As far as that egress goes on that property line, we only still be looking at Oakville Street as the way in and out, or would there be consideration going other streets?
So that's up to us then. So what we could do is we could have an entrance up. So right now there's an entrance on north that gets you, that has the gate that gets into the agricultural part.
Right.
I'm sure if we worked with Ann a little bit, it's like harness,
Any parties?
that we could possibly have two, right? Hopedale Street and then also off of that, we came in there. There is a break in the stone wall there already that we can, that actually abuts that where the parking lot would be, we could probably do that a little bit and just have another entrance coming in. It would, you would pass almost through the gardens a little bit and then into, again, I think we should have the.
Yeah, well, Mark.
But I'm just giving my,
Well, Mike delve into that to go for, that's part of his plan. Do that. And as soon as you get those drawings and things, why, that'll be helpful for him because it'll give a topology. And if he has partial, a two-story building like we're planning down here, they're actually, back end's all wide open, so you have the luxury of like living on the first floor.
yes,
Do we know what the water table is up there?
it's high,
It's high.
it's high. Oddly enough, it's high. That's why they were building up the, what would be the base with that riprap. Or whatever, I think that's bigger than riprap even, I think that's big stuff.
I don't know what that means, a water table, if it's high or low.
Sure, so water table is, where is the water in the ground?
Yeah.
When you start to, as far as for perk testing and whatnot, so where is that water, where is the when you hit water?
It would be fast, you'd hit it fast.
I think so,
Yeah, and then floats.
oddly enough, even on a hill.
Okay. All right.
That's still not turn.
No, I wouldn't think it would be.
You can control the water. Again, once we get some topos and take a look at it.
Yeah, I think there's perk testing, because there was already a septic design done, which will probably have to increase, because I don't think it was
Yeah.
planned for 300, but we'll see, and again, that also assumes you have 300 people all going to the bathroom. at the same time.
That's the TPA issue. They count and measure, and they have the form. Before we get too much further on, I'd like to introduce Mark, who's here for people who haven't met him.
Mark Keenan.
Yes, thank you.
I talked to Chief and he called me up and said, Mark potentially would be a valuable member to this group. He has insight for emergency management, which our center actually supports.
We do.
He's been involved with the town for a long time with fire department, police department.
Just a little bit of everything.
And he sounds like he's a willing volunteer. I would like to potentially join this group. So before we lose Lonnie, I was gonna propose that would we consider as a group, and I'm not sure, or would ask someone to consider nominating Mark to join the committee.
So moved.
Second.
That was too easy.
So we're going through the process of getting the select board to approve this. I'll send a note to the board.
So I think, yeah, right, I think usually he would also send a note to the town clerk, right?
Sure.
Just say you
You
might be
actually
joining
had
the
a,
board.
you had a template for that because we all used it.
It's a one-liner. I'll send it to you with the, also the online stuff here. Not a,
You have to be sworn in as, because he's already FEMA, he's already.
Yes, yeah, that's
Yeah,
Still,
we'll go there and she's on vacation, but
right, that's okay.
I was actually part of the initial committee.
Where you were,
that'll be good. That'll be history for us. We won't do the.
As an emergency shelter, emergency management, and there's also opportunities for grants to help certain, so.
That knowledge is very
For
valuable.
that, yeah.
Yeah, Mark said,
Grants, yeah.
Mark indicated that's how it breaks grants, so we need to find some money. And maybe we can do leverage him and whoever else can help him to write some grants for us.
Federal government's being very stingy right now.
Well, it's called you, right?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna give this to you. That's the plan, so you don't
Let's
keep
keep,
a broken record.
keep her on the record.
And I'll try to, I hope to get it all electronically.
Thank you. That's a good update on that. Getting back to the agenda. The first night, we had a meeting, this was really the Amy, Peg, myself, just talking about the requirements of the physical building. Number of seats, spacing, size and shape. So we went over that with, Mike, the architect. And he took that information back. He'll give us a summary of those notes. And I sent you electronically just a random list of notes that I provided for that meeting. And it goes through each room we reviewed, what we should do, was there enough? We went through the kitchen, and if we're gonna try to do more lunches than fewer lunches, which we probably need to do, it's only 2 days a week we do it now, we probably should do it more. We need an industrial style kitchen rather than a home kitchen. So we went through those elements, the elevator. We talked about the septic system for some of the drainage, parking for 50 spaces based on occupancy of 200 is a 4-to-1 ratio that they sometimes do for building. So that's something we need to consider. And disaster recovery shelter we mentioned, but we didn't go into detail. And I think that's a place, Mark, that maybe you and Mike get on the call someone and make sure that you understand all your requirements now that we have you almost on.
Yeah, we should probably take an official vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot.
I mean,
I said, a vote, please.
I just thinking,
You'll have to procedurally get me used to all this. Remember, I came from public, not private, not public. And then also on this note that I sent out, I talked about a freestanding garage. For capability of also electric vehicle. Because we could use that when we start shuttling just 1 or 2 people around. Future, remember, we're not just sitting here today. And the van, so we need that capability. And some storage space to put things like the boat, the books that they collect for this elders outside of the facility. So that's the other thing in here. Other areas we looked at is the gazebo. If we stay there, we have one. If we move, it's kind of central drop off point for a lot of people. So we need gazebos. The bocce court, we have one, but we move. Pickleball court was an interesting thing we talked about. Potentially, I don't know what the costs are. You can always scratch them off. Walking area and benches and trees, and that's where I think, continue to keep Ann in the pipeline. So that the city gets some CPA, whatever money that is,
For handicap
for
accessible.
handicap accessible type of passive recreation. I mean, we certainly need that. I love the Billingham place. It doesn't have to be that big, but we could do something like it. Flower gardens, garden area, which sounds, on that place, we'd have it right behind us. And reiterate storage and storage and storage. Solar and heat pump, electric charging stations and parking. We don't need them maybe today, but in the future, we're gonna have 20, 30, 40%, not far future.
Speaking about solar and
Heat pump,
et cetera, alternate energy, does anybody know how many kilowatts the present senior center uses?
and don't, but we might be able to find out.
So when it comes to heat pumps though, they're not so great up here.
Because of,
They don't work after a certain lower
They
temperature.
don't really work at all. Heat pumps are like tough and they end up running and running and running. We have them at what my mother's hair salon and stuff. They're a good idea, but they're a good idea like North Carolina. Where it doesn't get as cold. So just keep it.
Well, in conjunction with, because they do run on electricity. That's where you're gonna take a bite.
Yeah.
But if we figure out what our solar, what our usage is and weigh the cost, I believe, on an average price. 8,000 kilowatts a year, you'd need approximately 20 panels. That's an approximate, depending upon who you go with, that's approximately $30,000 investment.
And that would be also help consider with the topography of how the building's shaped.
Well, you don't have to put them on the roof.
We can put them in park.
That's a big misconception. Look at the school. School's got them on
On the parking.
the parking lot. I mean, there's very creative ways to use solar panels. But like I said, that's something we should try to work in, because that's gonna be here longer than us.
I agree. And along with that, the way the new solar systems really have the battery capability and on plant so that you can store it up.
Is there natural gas going on that?
It ends at the school.
It ends up the school.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Unless it comes up Oakdale Street. What does Visco use? That's Tennessee, yeah. Well, that's the main line.
I know. What's the only thing?
Sneak down.
Yeah.
Overpressurized.
Runner God knows. I'm sorry, I do have to bill.
It's okay.
You could just click, when it's over, just click even out. Actually, I'll jump on when I get back. I'm only gonna be 10 minutes. to figure out.
Okay,
So I'll come back on in a minute.
Okay.
okay, thanks. Thanks, Lonnie, for setting that.
I can promote these jobs.
Two of the things that we mentioned then, he said that we were looking at cost of $525 per square foot. That's, he said, what we're looking at now, today's market. And he also was very curious as to what did the committee think number would be that would fly with the taxpayers. He was very curious about that. We didn't have any idea.
Yeah, I'd rather go the other direction. I'd rather know what you mean, design for what you need, see what the cost is.
Okay, just telling you what happened at that.
Yeah, that could, you can never tell on what the town people vote for, you know.
Well, I wonder, like, about like how the debt can be spread out. I mean, ideally, we want to have the amount sort of match what's falling off our debt. So,
It doesn't impact the taxpayers.
so that it doesn't seem to, so that people don't notice their taxes
Go
go
up,
They don't, well, we don't want to miss the opportunity and have them,
go down,
Go
because
down,
yeah, that's what
yeah.
we'll come against.
so, right.
Resistance.
But I mean, I don't know, like,
The unfortunate fact is, our taxes here in this town will never go down significantly to go, oh, wow.
right, well,
Those
if
days are gone.
we, but if,
Because
yeah,
I've been here 40 years and
Yeah.
I've watched it. And what's going to happen is right now is a good time for this.
Yeah.
Because for the last 35 years, we've been, and again, I love the school, but we've been feeding that monster. We finally got this building built after 25 years of struggling to get it. Because we were feeding a different monster.
Well, that monster's been there for a long time.
So I think right now is a good time. Because we are gonna have to build more schools.
Right.
I mean, anybody
Yeah.
that doesn't believe that.
Oh, Misco.
Risco is
It's not the
definitely,
case.
yeah, showing its age.
Absolutely. So again, I think we focus on what we want and build this for the future. So that long after we're gone.
And we pursue grants to defray the cost of the taxpayer,
Well,
like, so green communities, things like that.
Right.
So we can talk to Ann about green communities, if you're thinking solar and all that stuff you're
Well,
talking about.
I did speak to Ann briefly, but she didn't tell me where to go find the money. This was my original
Talk
call.
to them.
She said, we talked about solar panels,
mhm.
putting green, making the facility as green as possible. The feds all like that, the states all like that, so there could be some trickle down. And all those things we need to. So if you- I'm hoping, Mark could maybe organize his thoughts around this and categorize.
Again, we have to,
You don't know what you stepped into.
we have to look outside the box.
Yeah.
If you step back and look, we're at the top of the hill up there. Wind power is another alternative. It shouldn't be overlooked. I'm not talking about putting a 400-foot wind turbine up with 150-foot long blades,
That'll never pass the town.
but it could be possible. to
Some
put
small,
some
smaller systems.
Wind systems up there. Just saying.
Good idea, I thought of.
Can I ask about the debt topic? Is there any debt that town would be coming off of in the near future?
Yeah, you could have tap, right? That's done. I mean, that's been a big one for 20 years, so
You know, the library,
Orchard, that.
Oh, that's-
Yeah, that's pretty much done.
We-
That's when I'm thinking we're done or next year, I think it's gonna.
Unless we need water.
Go to the senior center.
There you go.
when he was looking at, he asked her about, the architect asked her, how many people do you expect to come into the facility every day? And she was looking at the number of 100. She thought that would be a reasonable amount, and I think that will take us into the future too, at any given time. The building would hold more, but that was her idea of
That would
capacity.
be the general day-to-day business. The events, I think, will,
That's different.
events that you have, right now, we have to try to,
We're at the Unitarian Church on Sunday.
A new building done right is gonna generate a lot of usage versus if we just stuck it in an old building and put coat paint on.
I think as we move forward with this facility, some of the things I'm talking with Amy, issues here is looking at, getting volunteers around, volunteer coordinators who can manage resources, who then could put on more programs and fully utilize, because the pandemic slowed her, that's screwed up. She's just restarting a lot. And now we can't fit them in, we start too. So we're kind of in between, but there's a lot of potential. I'd love to see it come down in age too.
Oh, yeah, it's not just limited to the seniors.
I don't know what that is yet.
Keep looking for them.
Did the COA have a presence at the Rockville Block event?
We did.
Unfortunately, I wasn't
You
there,
didn't
so I wasn't there, I was away.
I was
I
10
don't
foot
know.
upper and 10 tape down.
Just curious, how long, good interactions?
We had,
Bill had 3 posters.
we had 3 big posters we had.
We did. We gave away, a beautiful tricolor mom. Nobody had to buy a ticket. It was just for,
Yeah.
I'm thinking we gave away things for the
We
kids.
talked to a lot of people.
Yep. Elaine took a shift. Diane was
Little,
there.
little trifold brochures and, with some of the points about the
Yeah.
expansion.
I'll send you copies, I can send you electronic bifolds. We're gonna be able to see what on piece deal.
Yeah, it was very well attended. It was very well attended. It was a great time. I mean, I should have said that in front of Lonnie when he was here. Even with the bad weather, I think everyone enjoyed
I think
themselves.
if it wasn't so hot and humid and with the thunderstorm rolling around and by and everything, that's what.
Well, the fireworks went off. I'm sure a lot of the kids were thrilled about that.
That
We
goes,
gave those glow in the dark things too.
that goes to the next one. What's the next thing we're gonna do?
We're going to do the trick or treat.
Trick or trust.
Oh, also are you doing the Lions? Club?
No, we're doing that too.
Okay. Good. Which is gonna be at Daniel's Farm.
Yeah, I know what that is.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying it for the
New
purpose of the meeting.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's fun. Yep.
Gonna be fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
We'll be there.
Forward to it.
As we move with the Lions and with the, well, you're with the brothers, right?
Yes.
Also, we'll be at the,
The Lions.
and we'll be at the Halloween party too.
I see it, I see it. We're over here to be potentially
We're not missing any opportunity, trust me.
advocates.
Being with the community folks,
We're
definitely.
paying for the ticket after. Okay, I'll be paying for that.
Okay. So, as we go through the agenda items, update on North. Oh, the other thing that we had on our stuff was the fact that, I started to work with the sheet I handed out with you guys. I gave it a tough assignment because it wasn't logical.
I'm glad you admitted that because I don't think the way you think.
I went through this piece of paper, I said, what did I do here? I had to go through it twice. And I shared with you now the sample of what I put down. But then for me to make any sense out of it, I actually created another sheet which just kind of summarized the 4 locations. And I added up points, and at the bottom I could say, oh, this one has so many points, and then So this exercise was more of a brain dump, I think, that I had to rationalize. And when I tried to fill it out, it was very difficult.
When I was looking at it, the trim impact that was used, that kind of threw me a little bit.
That's right, that was that word impact,
Yeah. so-
because I was thinking 1 to 5.
Really meant. So when I went through the exercise, I did it as, least favorable, most.
That's how I
That's
did.
what I did.
And I
Yeah,
did it
like,
in
yeah,
pencil.
so,
And then from that, then you can figure out what the impacts might be based on.
Right.
right,
Absolutely right.
I
yeah.
was looking at impact in my mind, but I was really looking for positive, negative favorability. You'll get used to me.
Gonna change it.
Thinking it's the same question worded differently.
Some of them were,
So I was thinking, well, see up here, or see over there. Yeah, I was,
but if you have independent thinking that you put together, and if you look at the new folder I passed out, there's a blank sheet here, and this other one that I feel match my earlier. And if you want me, I'll try to translate your stuff into one of these. And then we'll have a bunch of these that rate them. And my output came to be North Ave 16 is number 1 that I ranked it, in my view. And I think the big thing is center of the town, real community center. I thought the topography was very good. I thought the area was excellent to put some passage walkways around. I was not opposed to the school traffic. We're gonna have school traffic at the other location, which came at number 2. The Hopedale Street. Number 3 was our current facility, my assessment. Not trying to give you any kind of guidance here. And then Morris Drive, I had difficulties with that from a number of things, mainly access. I can get in there without going to the fire department or the industrial park and not going to.
Well, I took a ride on, looked at that. I was part of the committee that why it built the fire station.
Mhm.
Part of the committee. This station, but that building that's in the back there.
Okay.
I was greatly involved in that.
Okay.
I'll be quite honest, glad there's 2 selectmen here. I'm kind of disappointed in the condition that it's. Well, there, it's like a jungle. You got junk everywhere.
Inside
I
the
mean, I'm
building.
not looking to point fingers at anybody, but. Come on,
That's unmaintained.
Yeah, you can talk.
oh, thank you. I was just wondering, what number building is that on Morrison Drive? Because I was at the planning board meeting last night. And they were talking about an 81P for Morrison Avenue. And they were talking about the Applewood
Yeah, I know what that is.
and somewhat on Morrison are separated, but they shouldn't be, and they just want to put them all back together into one big thing.
Isn't that where the buses are? Doesn't that
But yet,
abut Apple Dry, Apple?
yeah, I would think that would be it, but then,
it's 8 Morrison sounds.
That's the fire station.
Is that the fire station?
and Jack Hunter mentioned something about the building that was gonna be used for the police station, and I was thinking,
Earl Jackson.
that building isn't anywhere near Applewood. And so I was just confused.
No, it isn't, but where the school buses are.
Yeah.
When you first go in Morrison,
Or behind that whole area.
stay to the right as if you were heading towards the oil company, where the school buses, I believe that's part of that abuts.
So I was just confused.
I'll tell you, with all the talk I had heard about Morrison, I was really expecting to see it slum. And I was surprised that there was actually a building there, because the people at the senior center who've been talking about it, you know, you would think you were going into a real house of horrors. And it really wasn't as bad. I mean, I'm not saying it was my choice.
From the outside building.
Right, and the lot itself, I mean, it's in the woods, like, so it's pretty, it's just isolated.
It's very isolated and there's no other access except for Morrison. But Diane, you made a good point the other day. You said there was a driveway and there's a sign across it that says do not enter.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's anywhere near where
Okay,
the
the way-
Morrison property is.
And I'm thinking Providence Road is behind that Morrison building. And Sean was saying, oh, no, that's our Possibly want to go down?
Well,
She's
actually,
got a map right
Yeah,
here.
so with it, at the back of our packet, there's a
Mike?
map, so.
Petrovic is gonna take a look at the town maps. And his concern with Morrison, he thinks Morrison, by the way, has an opportunity to save construction costs. He doesn't completely, there's a lot of issues with it, but the plus side of it is his construction value.
And it would be, it would be changing it substantially.
Absolutely,
So, like,
it would have to be
but-
expanded.
right, but, yeah,
But he did mention there's value, just don't discount. it, because
Right.
there's a-
Oh, no,
good
no,
bones.
I mean, it's good news that it's next to the fire station, so if any of us seniors go down, do get sick, have heart attacks or whatever, they're right there. Whether I wanted to drive in and out when they're trying to get out of there. It's a different
The
story.
positives that we gain from having a building already, the shell of it there, we're gonna lose some of it. In the site work, what I see is the building is easy. Site work, depending upon the site. North Ave, we're just talking, the Gannett property. There's no stumping and grubbing, there's no going in and cutting a million trees down and pushing a road in. It's fairly
It's
easy.
there.
Personally, I like that property. I do. I like that.
I like it too, but
The hook dip.
as I keep saying, we have to really tear apart all our options.
We do. You gotta be
The
negative.
best choice for the, to present to the town.
Right.
I like it for the reasons that we're not gonna have to close down and break up the senior center now to shift around to all different buildings in order for them to renovate it. I think if we move the full pantry up to the Bethany Church, then we might as well just kiss the full pantry goodbye because it's going.
That's a tremendous benefit by not breaking. And the services that would be diminished.
It would make the most sense because that's a functional building that's been maintained. The site is functional and it's been maintained. So again, town fathers decide to let the park department take it over. That's perfect because the highway department.
That's right.
The day's gonna come when Mendon's gonna be very large and it won't be just apartments, it'll be in.
Municipal.
The private utilities, and this,
So again, in the future, if we think that way, well, but there's our municipal.
and then a little adjunct there could build on some of the more drawing station.
At least that's the way we thought 25 years ago,
Still, it's up,
I believe so.
because I think the key point is it's a functioning building and been maintained.
Right, and it's been maintained. It's still not rotten by,
No, they're not. We maintain it.
et cetera. That building on Morrissey, I drove right up there and I drove around the back. The garage doors kicked in the bottom. The siding is because maintenance there, the siding is starting to pop. Which happens, if it's not the workmanship, it's just an unused building deteriorates fast.
Well, it's in 15, so it's. But anyway, so I guess, sorry for the confusion, but it made me think a lot about these different sites. So hopefully it did the same for you.
I thought it was a useful exercise to think about the same question for each of the sites. I didn't always have an answer for the same question, but I had to go through that exercise.
And I think if you see it, and the reason I shared my stuff with you is because I rationalized it with my sheet, and I get places here, go, okay, donations, I don't have anything but a possible on it. We
Right.
talked about it,
Up at North and Hopedale
and
Street.
that's the question mark.
But Lonnie has left, I know, but am I clear, is he's originally, it was said that Gary Smith might have money to go along with that. I understood that, somebody said that.
Yes,
so-
I'm here.
Oh,
I'm
there he
back.
is. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, right, talking about going on the back end. So I understood you tonight, Lonnie, to say that you think the money will come from the Gannets.
So, okay, no, look, it was always that way. So right now, the Gannets gave the land to Gary, to the Smith family, to the Shirley Smith thing. And then the situation was that there was money to help build and improve the facility. Improve the site and help to build the facility, I should say. I said that backwards.
And was
So-
that Gary,
What's that?
was that Gary's money?
No, from the Gannets. So if there's, the thought was that there's possibly some money that's still available to help. Now, we don't have that answer yet because we never knew what the full amount was. There was never a talk of an amount, and it's possible. I don't want to, I speak, that's between Gary and the Gannets. If it plays through, it plays through. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
It's a consideration, though. That's why it's kind of a need to know.
I know it's a need to know, but it's a personal relationship thing, so I don't want to talk about it too much. Because I don't know the answers, and then we're talking about something that's between two people, not between the town and people. It's just was brought up. We don't know what that answer is, and it needs to be talked about between them.
I
And
mentioned-
we're
Okay, but
we're just on a recorded meeting, live meeting. Rather, wait till we have better details. That's all.
So moving on, but anyway, this sheet that I provided. I had asked, I said, bring it input in today. If you have, you may want to look at, and I'll rationalize it. So I'll try to make your 1s, 2s, 3s, and 5, and put it in my spreadsheet, give it back to you.
My scale was, different than yours. So mine was like 5 was positive and
Yeah.
1 was negative. So as opposed to having, I think you had like impact for positive and impact for negative, and then you were like canceling them out. So, yeah.
But we'll, I'll try to take a swag at it and put it together and give it back to you. Or,
Do you have this electronically? Sir, can you send us
sure I
electronically?
can. Love it.
Lonnie made mention of that there were, Mr. Emmett. I don't know, Mike. Because you wouldn't want to hear me try to pronounce it, but anyway, they were talking about the water tables being high up on North Ave. Now, was that gonna be anything about wetlands or anything? I have this thing about wetlands.
Once we do some tests up there, or test, I mean, I'm presuming a septic system has not been designed for that. But all that,
It's something, it was something.
I think
if there was,
it needs to be expanded for the size of the building.
all right, so if we get,
Sorry,
if we
real
get-
quick. There has been perk testing done and a septic design. I just don't know if it's been designed for the size of the facility that we're talking about.
I don't
Once
think
I
Right.
get that information, Fred Lapham has it.
for the present design, no matter what size it's for, will give us some basic information on the water table and actually the perk rate.
Yep, agreed.
That material, that information is probably there.
Right.
And, Linden's wet, and if you can build on it. And if you perk it, you find it, you'll be fine. My house lives on water. It was backfilled with stone and crush. Never held a basement, so.
I had flooded the other day, so.
That piece of property is not in a hole. So that's a big plus.
Yeah. That's a plus. Okay. Okay. So I guess if you can provide a hard copy with me, electronic, I'll send out what I did. I can brought to the meeting to you all. So you can see what my view of the world was at that time. And then, the other items we have on our list. I don't know if Jack, if you're on or not. I'm sorry. I'm gonna reach out to Jack. Jack was assigned to our team to work as a project person. I'm gonna ask him to begin to look at our 4 locations and consider some of the things that he's doing like for 52, the Providence housing development, and ask him to consider things like water and sewage, and start to consolidate that information or tell us what we need to do. Work with Lonnie or whoever, get it for Hopedale. work with what we have at our site now with Joel, Joel was, and then again, look at the Morrison, dig up whatever we can find there. And ask him to be like the keeper of that group of information and present back to us. I think that's in his scope, being assigned to our committee. Is that, as select people, would you under, any comments on that?
Sure, how many hours for anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's limited, but the one though, I'd pause when you said project role, management role type of thing.
I
I
don't,
think Dylan might be. I'm sure.
let me start with, will Jack?
I would probably say, when I read that bullet point, it's like you want Jack to be able to understand what synergies are across other things going on in these different locations, or things we have to think about.
Right.
That's fair.
An assessment of the 4 locations.
Yeah.
That's what I'm. And if he needs to pull somebody in, or the engineers he knows.
And you might want details, when you say an assessment, specifically what you need, kind of information we can get back. I probably want to be clear with that, I think.
I guess I need to talk to him about what he needs for that assessment. About how many acreage of disbursement do I need for a 300-person septic system? I got from Joel at one time 22 acres. Which would be total. The current senior center is 10. When I talked to Ann indicated that there's land around that we could use, and because we're not building on it, it's still conservation land. That could be used or zoned in a manner that it could be considered part of it. But I don't
Say, from regulations, like what are the considerations from a spec standpoint, and we can look at the, and say, can these areas support?
That's good. Thank you. So I want to lean on a little bit and get him involved, not only with, because he was assigned to us, and see, and if that's not the case, we'll see if we can get more assignment. Or someone else's.
I think that's kind of, the role he's in is to do just that.
Okay,
Lieutenant, maybe.
I'm just trying to get people to carry more rocks along the way here. So that piece. We have that. Well, we talked about reviewing action items as far as the contract process. Any more about it?
Haven't gotten an update on Monday. And the plan I'm trying to bring. Yeah, we'll see David tomorrow, so assuming you get an update.
Okay. If you could check with that, that would be good. I told Mike that it's in the works and he's fine with that. It'd be good to give an update.
Yeah, it's for an ETA. Because you're gonna want the language, go back and forth.
And Mike A. Talked about how do we approach our state reps? And Lonnie was talking about, he was gonna approach some folks on this restrictions we have on our conservation. If we wanted to do a redo on Oakdale Street and North Ave, how do we know the steps of that process and what legislation we would need? We need to make sure we go down that far.
Didn't Ann Mazar say in the email that she was looking into that?
She was, but I want to make sure we tie those threads together. Lonnie's looking at it. Ann's looking at it. I think the select board and Jack has relationships with some people in the state areas. I want to make sure we tie that together so we all know what we're trying to do. I don't feel we do right. Okay? I think we have different efforts.
And I think you've got two different things here, right? You're looking for funding, sources of funding.
That's
One thing.
Yeah.
Save audiences, then you got the tactical, how do I actually change the conservation restriction? That's actually probably a different audience that Ann probably knows what to talk to.
I think Ann would, yeah. And I think Lonnie was chasing that
Yeah.
in parallel with Ann. And if we're comfortable with that, that's fine. And then the other one is funding, which is probably different people. Same senators and congressmen will probably need to know we're doing it.
Yeah.
Because they can push buttons, but they're probably different people on this.
And a lot of that, I mean, you're really teeing it up for next fiscal year budget. With those.
So I don't know, what are the dates and timings that we need to be in front of? You guys know?
Well, I mean, I think was when we were first, I mean, that was right around the time, and they're looking,
Yeah, now I'm,
that was
dates are
spring.
blur. Okay, it was spring. Okay.
Yes, I think we probably want to start thinking of a thing we probably want for next spring. To get, from the earmarks perspective, that we get it on the radar. And it's on their radar. We just want to keep it on their radar.
Keep
Right,
it.
and I mean, there are, right, earmarks at the federal level and then your state level.
We had that conversation. Boss's office, they're helping say, work through them, they can navigate the federal level.
And Jack was designated as our contact.
Right.
So maybe we need to talk to Jack.
But I think that also requires maybe more details at this point, so sort of broad brush, a lot of different projects towns looking at. I think when we get more details and we're actually getting more to be engaged upon execution, things like that, I think when
Well,
Mike brings plans back, we know what the costs are, what we're doing, how, what kind of funding we might look. Green related or what have you, you know what I mean? Right, with a number of places.
Mike's plan, and I've asked him as part of this contract that he's doing, is to run the design project milestones as well as presentation. One of the things, his project milestones, next week or the week after. We met him last week, so 2 weeks from last week. We're gonna meet him again, and he's gonna come back with all of our input that we gave him. And come back, here's what I have, when we're scrubbing. The following 2 weeks, we bring it to this committee here. To go through the stuff, and people can join at this next meeting, if they want. Public funds. But then it's a formal presentation, what he thinks the costs are based on the feedback he's heard over the past 6 weeks. And his knowledge from before. And Mark, if you can plug in with him about the emergency side, that would be good. So that's that side, and I think when we have more concrete information, we might be able to say, okay, these are kind of earmarks, we want to do these kind of things, he's gonna identify. And then we can go chase that, which would be our winter project, to get ready for money.
Yeah, it's early and often with stuff like this, you figure out what design looks like, institution looks like, start the communication with our representatives, this is what we're doing. Hopefully they can find the avenues for us.
Sure. Now, is there any funds, just for my sitting in all these meetings, is there any project money that hasn't been identified for the project town holds now? ARP money or CPA money, or I know CPAs are amazed that they're gonna figure out with A.
Right, I mean, a CPA has, can only be used for certain very specific, reasons. But I don't know, like, I feel like there might be some, like, I mean, there were funds that we were considering in terms of like the town water and sewer, but not enough for that project, so.
That's
I'm
millions.
sorry, I'm laughing, no.
Yeah,
That's 10.
we do not have tens of millions,
I guess if there's possibility, and maybe as we get this plan from Mike, we understand their costs better. I guess my request would be back to the board to take a look at private funds in the ARP program would offset the cost. Because, I'm gonna look for.
I mean, it certainly to be discussed, right, so.
It's a discussion.
Yeah.
It takes us back.
It's your priority setting that you were trying to do in one of your meetings. What are my project priorities? And I view that the senior centers now teed up to be one-on-ones. At the top of the list for next year term.
Well done, Sarah. It is.
Question, did you, happen to share that, Mike had asked us kind of point blank, what?
What the
you feel-
budget.
Yeah,
I did raise that.
you did raise it.
Consensus was that we'd like to see his numbers.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, I think there was a number a few years ago, right, that was some, like, one version that was
Oh, there was
way
a-
too
there was
high.
the 9 million.
Right.
That's
That was, I think less than that.
And then he dropped down to, he came in and for free, we worked it for us, after he parted with his partner. And he came back with like 3.5, and at which point, I think him and others looked at it and said, it's really gonna be 5 million. I don't, was even Dave looked at it and said, 3.5 on paper, and by the timeline, it'd probably be 5.
And I mean, construction costs have gone up a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, construction's gone up, the
Yeah.
our requirement can increase too, but looking at it with a broader lens for more than the next 5 years.
And in his original plans, we've already had to expand them
Yes.
because we don't have enough room.
Like the original plan had the basement done, because we said we want to do that, and then when we cut back to that 3.5, $5 million number, we did have the basement finished, and so we do want the space, you know, we need.
Especially if we're gonna let other, like the Lions use that space and things like that, I mean, you have to have the bathrooms fixed, they have to be running. Have to have access to get in.
I think the timing though, the timing is good, because I think we should be sitting down. We should be seeing a framework for capital planning and forecasting budgets for the next meeting or two, the end of the month. For the
So it sounds like if we start rolling our numbers.
You're not gonna get into when debt pulls off to the earlier point, things like that. So start to at least line things up theoretically and then for the prioritization, et cetera.
Then you'll have the tools, you'll have some alignment, at least a bit. So it sounds like we're running to the same time schedule. And the more we can move Mike and everything, getting it closer, better. And then if I would ask you folks to, any kind of input you have, either by postal or at the senior center or by email or tonight, give me your input on this so that I can aggregate all this. And as I said, my samples out to Amy, I'll go through that again.
So when are we meeting with, Mike again? Do we have a date set
Yeah,
there?
it's the Wednesday, 2 weeks from last Wednesday. That's at 1:30 this time. It's on your calendar,
Is
electronic,
it the 27th?
if that's 2 weeks from last Wednesday.
I didn't have it written, that's unusual.
I think I sent the email.
Maybe. Add it to the hundreds. Everybody has their systems.
I have here, Mike meeting, and I'll send it out to this committee, if folks would like to join and visit that. The next plan would be presented more formally to this committee, almost like it's ready to go this way. So if there's any more holes, we'd love to join that. Other. And if you want to do an evening session, I'll join something in the evening. Because there are people. Hang on a second. The 27th. I have it on my calendar, 27th, 1:30.
That's mine.
And I did send it in to you guys. I didn't send it out, Rob, but I will. Okay, I think, we're getting close to, we have Mark, we're welcoming
Thank you.
to the committee, and, our emergency disaster guy who's gonna work with, Mark Petrovic, make sure he knows what he needs. And you're also gonna help us with grants, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
At least a list of
there's
possibilities.
possibilities out there.
Yeah, I think that's.
Some grants come out for generators all the time, so that would be the first one I would work on. It's actually already written, it's written for the old center, but it's a much bigger one, the expansion, so.
And then we can go from there. Any other new business or topics or concerns? What do we need to do differently? I'm new at Run Money, so any comments or criticisms? Are welcome. Okay. And John, maybe the other thing I was thinking, get you on the hook for something besides just the brothers. Maybe think about for our next meeting. Think about for our next meeting, resources that you could use. Just to get an idea of how many different events might be going on online. And kind of keep a tracking of that so that we're all there. And maybe with Diane and the friends, you'll hook there. You could make sure the friends are involved because we can't do everything from a board stand. Our board meeting, but Diane. Because
Friends are on fundraising on.
she's a friend. Peg's gonna be plugged. Peg's plugging on how to get all the stuff together.
The Facebook, I know I'm old, but on the Mendon page, they always put what's happening.
But anyway,
There's
if
the
we can
brothers.
start getting a list of that so we don't miss anything. We should have our little posters, new posters, handouts. Put in the word for the next 6 to 9 months, everywhere we can. Maybe plug us in on the newspaper, so we take some of this new stuff we did for Block to Block and put it in the newspaper.
Are you folks connected with the schools?
We're trying to get the Pen Pal program started up again, which we did for years before the epidemic. And we give a scholarship.
Lots of student volunteers from both BBT and.
I was thinking in terms of events that, parents put on and things that originate from the school, standpoint that
Good one.
would be good to kind of stay
I don't got ideas.
connected with.
Thing.
So,
It's like rock the block for the soccer.
For the soccer program.
I say, my daughter's been out of school a long time. I don't have anyone in the school system.
You, Tom, you're jumping right into your new role, finding these little things. to do.
Just let us know.
I'm one. Yeah, I do one.
I'll introduce you to my daughter. She has school-age kids and, this school, so she might know when those things are going on.
Well, I'm just thinking with this, this proposal, we're trying to hear, Mike talked about it, looking at the future. So we have to tap those groups coming up in the future and the younger folks to come on board, because the way I'm viewing this, I think this really has to be presented as a community benefited project.
absolutely.
Not just seniors, I understand the focus, the seniors, but this is something that could benefit all groups and all others.
And I
Some
think,
people are, have seen something.
Yeah, absolutely.
I keep waiting. Okay. Any other topics? If Mark, I'll get you all the stuff and I'll send you the stuff electronically by tomorrow.
Sounds good.
And we'll see you in a couple weeks. And if you want to come to that meeting with February
27th.
you're welcome.
We talked. Right, Amy, we went through this with them, so he should, but it'd be for you to reiterate with him.
I'll send you the contact.
Yep.
This is what we have.
I'll let you know if you
Poster.
reach out.
Did you see that? Building.
Second. All there. All right.
Oh my God, we have people who are on the.
Lonnie, you got the recording?
the committee and Some of the things.
Yep, I'm good. I can shut everything down.
I newsletter.
I never saw, my phone was locked to my car, so I texted you and
Everyone pay attention to you.
emailed.
It would be going in a different direction.
And you'll send those.
I think it's gonna be bought by poster, and that's what we do, that doesn't mean we can't get another one. I think we'll